Selnar's four-fingered hand hovered over the deletion command. Her supervisor would never know she'd accessed the restricted file. She could erase her digital footprints and continue her unremarkable career cataloging habitable worlds for the Confederacy's expansion division. But something about this planet, Earth, wouldn't let her go. The holographic display bathed her quarters in a soft blue glow, highlighting the contours of her scaled face. The planet looked so harmless. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. Nothing about its appearance suggested why it alone among millions of worlds would carry such an ominous warning. Computer to display all accessible information on species designation human, she whispered. The computer beeped in protest. Warning. Information restricted. Security clearance insufficient. Selnar plugged in the override module she'd borrowed from the security office during her mandatory rotation. A small crime, but her curiosity had become an obsession. Security protocols temporarily bypassed, the computer announced. Limited access granted. The room filled with three-dimensional images of bipedal creatures with varied coloration and minimal protective covering. They appeared so vulnerable. No scales, no natural armor, moderately developed musculature. She couldn't see anything that would warrant quarantining their entire world. Physical parameters suggest Category 3 threat potential. She murmured to herself, taking notes. Nothing exceptional. Then the behavioral data appeared, and Selnar's breathing quickened. Unlike most sentient species whose development followed predictable patterns, humans showed radical acceleration and adaptation curves. Their technological progression had jumped millennia in mere centuries. More concerning were their conflict patterns. They fought constantly, against environment, against other species on their world, against each other. Yet somehow, this hadn't destroyed them, but had driven innovation at rates that defied Confederate predictive models. The file contained a single video recording, marked with the highest security classification. Selnar hesitated, then activated it. The footage showed a Confederate diplomatic vessel in orbit around Earth. Standard first contact protocols. Nothing unusual, until the feed switched to ground operations. A team of Confederate representatives stood before a group of humans in what appeared to be a formal meeting. Everything seemed normal until one of the Confederate medical officers produced a collection device and moved toward a human child. What happened next made Selnar's scales flatten against her body in shock. The humans moved with unexpected speed. 3 Confederate officers were down before weapons could be drawn. Then something even more unexpected. An elderly human female somehow accessed and activated a Confederate officer's personal shield technology, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of alien tech that should have been impossible. The footage abruptly ended with emergency evacuation sirens blaring. A notification flashed on her screen. Unauthorized access detected. Security response dispatched to your location. Selnar quickly transferred the files to her personal device and erased her access logs, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The pounding on her door confirmed her fears. Archivist Selnar, by authority of Confederate Security Directive 1138, opened this door immediately. She swallowed hard, tucking the data device into her inner pouch. There was no escaping punishment now, but the truth about Earth seemed worth whatever consequences awaited. The humans had done something no species had ever managed. They had frightened the Confederacy enough to earn their world the only no-entry warning in the entire Galactic database. And Selnar was determined to understand why. The security officers didn't arrest Selnar. Instead, they escorted her through corridors she'd never seen before, deep into the restricted section of the Confederate archives. Her confusion only grew when they brought her to a chamber where Admiral Vostaller himself waited, his crest fully extended in agitation. "You've created quite the problem, Archivist," the Admiral said, his voice surprisingly calm despite his physical display of stress. "Few have shown such initiative regarding the Earth files." Selnar's inner membrane flickered nervously across her eyes. "Sir, I was merely—" "Spare me your excuses," Vostaller interrupted. Since you've gone to such lengths to learn about Earth, you might as well see the complete record. The lights dimmed, and a full holographic projection surrounded them, far more detailed than what Selnar had accessed in her quarters. The scene showed the aftermath of the failed first contact, aboard the Confederate flagship. Admiral Zentex, the commander of that ill-fated mission 2 centuries ago, looked haggard as he recorded his emergency report. Blood of several different colors stained his uniform. The humans captured 19 of our personnel and significant quantities of our technology, Zentex reported. We underestimated them catastrophically. They don't just use tools like other primitive species. They fundamentally reshape technology to their needs almost instinctively. The report continued with footage from orbital surveillance drones left behind to monitor the situation. Selnar watched in disbelief as humans, within days, began disassembling Confederate equipment with remarkable precision. Within weeks, they had replicated components. Within months, they had improved them. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "No species learns this quickly." Admiral Vosteller paused the playback. "That's exactly what made the Confederate Council implement the quarantine. Watch what happened when we attempted to recover our personnel." The footage resumed, showing a Confederate rescue fleet approaching Earth. The humans had been expected to cower before such overwhelming force. Instead, they deployed crude but effective weapons reverse-engineered from Confederate technology. 7 Confederate vessels were damaged beyond repair. The rest retreated with significant casualties. The final recovery mission was even worse, Vostaller said grimly. They had adapted our shield technology by then, making precision strikes impossible. We had to choose between full planetary bombardment or retreat. But the Confederacy has never hesitated to subjugate threatening species before, Selnar said, her academic knowledge of Confederate history surfacing despite her shock. Vosteller's crest flattened in what Selnar recognized as embarrassment. The Council determined that the cost of conquering Earth would be unprecedented. More importantly, our predictive models showed that any humans who survived would become an even greater threat, driven by vengeance and permanently hostile to Confederate rule. The final footage showed the installation of the automated defense platforms and warning beacons around the Sol system. The quarantine was our only option, Vosteller concluded. We could not risk humans spreading throughout the galaxy, potentially unifying with other species against us. Their adaptability and persistence made them uniquely dangerous. Selnar's scientific mind raced with questions. But 200 years have passed. Have we monitored their development? Admiral Vosteller's expression darkened. That, archivist, is why you're here. Someone needs to join our observation post, and your unauthorized interest has volunteered you for the assignment. Captain Vexler had expected to make a quick fortune. The Galactic black market paid handsomely for information about quarantined worlds, and Earth was the most mysterious of them all. His ship, the Silent Prophet, had the best stealth technology credits could buy, or so he thought. Now, as the airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, he realized how terribly he had miscalculated. The humans that entered his ship moved with practiced precision. 6 of them, wearing sleek black exosuits that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their helmets retracted, revealing faces that looked almost disappointingly ordinary. Vexlor had expected monsters, given Earth's reputation. Captain Vexlor of the Silent Prophet, registered to the Cygnus Trade Collective, the lead human stated, not asking but telling. Your stealth systems were detected the moment you crossed Neptune's orbit. Vexler's tendrils writhed in distress. How do you know my name? My ship identifier is scrambled. The human smiled, an expression Vexler couldn't read. We've had 2 centuries to study Confederate communication protocols. Your encryption is quaint. Another human was moving through the ship, touching control panels that responded to her as if she were Vexler himself. Ship systems that should have required complex override codes yielded instantly. What are you doing? Vexler demanded, his translator struggling to convey his alarm. Just checking your flight log, the human replied casually. We like to know who else might be interested in our little corner of the galaxy. The lead human, who had introduced himself simply as Commander Chen, studied Vexlor with unsettling intensity. You're not the first to ignore the warnings, you know. But you are the first in almost 15 years. Vexlor's secondary hearts began beating faster. What happened to the others? That depends entirely on their intentions, Shen replied. Those who came seeking conquest or exploitation didn't return to Confederate space. Others, with more scientific or diplomatic interests, were given a choice. What choice? Vexlor asked, mandibles clicking nervously. The same one we're offering you. Chen gestured to a small device one of his team had placed on the ship's command console. This will repair your engines, which we disabled as a precaution. You can leave immediately with nothing but a frightening story, or what? Or you can accept our invitation and see what the Confederacy has been hiding from the galaxy. Vexlor's species prided themselves on their business acumen, on always calculating the profitable choice. But for once in his life, it wasn't profit that swayed his decision, but pure, overwhelming curiosity. What do you mean, hiding? Commander Chen's expression softened slightly. The quarantine wasn't just to keep humans contained, Captain. It was to prevent the galaxy from learning what we've discovered. The implications stunned Vexlor. You've had contact with other non-Confederate species. More than contact, Chen confirmed. Alliance, cooperation, exchange of knowledge, the Confederacy has suppressed for millennia. Another human approached, whispering something in Chen's ear. He nodded gravely. It seems your arrival wasn't as unnoticed as we'd hoped, Chen said. Confederate observation posts have detected our interaction and dispatched an investigative team. Your time to decide has just shortened considerably. Vexlor looked at his damaged ship, then at the humans with their inexplicable technology and knowledge. The choice suddenly seemed obvious. Show me, he said. Kraz released his grip on Selnar, his expression unreadable beneath his ceremonial security mask. The observation post hummed with activity as analysts monitored Earth's communications and defense systems. Through the viewport, Neptune's blue expanse provided a stunning backdrop to their covert operation. 200 years, Selnar said, recovering her composure. The Confederacy has watched them for 2 centuries. What have we learned? Kraz gestured toward a secure terminal. See for yourself. The display showed a timeline of human technological development. Selnar's scientific training couldn't reconcile what she was seeing. The progression was impossible. Evolutionary leaps that should have taken millennia occurring in decades. This can't be accurate, she insisted. No species advances this rapidly. Except humans, Kraz replied grimly. Watch this. He played footage of what appeared to be a human entertainment program, labeled Science Fiction 2080. It depicted faster-than-light travel, advanced AI, and energy weapons, all crude approximations but recognizable. Then he showed actual human technology from 2273, their current year. The similarities were uncanny. They imagine technologies before creating them, Kraz explained. They dream, speculate, theorize, and then make those dreams reality. It's unprecedented. Selnar watched in fascination as human civilization transformed before her eyes. Their cities grew not just outward but upward, with structures that defied conventional engineering. Their energy production evolved from burning hydrocarbons to harnessing their star's power directly. But the most concerning development, Kraz continued, is their unified planetary defense system. The display shifted to show orbital platforms surrounding Earth. To an untrained eye, they might look like simple communication satellites or research stations. Selnar saw something else entirely. Those are weapon emplacements, she whispered. But the design. I've never seen anything like it. Neither have our weapons specialists, Kraz admitted. They appear to utilize principles our science doesn't fully understand. Our simulations suggest they could neutralize a Confederate battle fleet within minutes. Selnar's mind raced with implications. If they're this advanced, Why haven't they broken the quarantine? Surely they've detected our observation posts. Kraz's expression darkened. That's the question that keeps Confederate High Command awake at night. The leading theory is that they're still preparing, building up their forces for an eventual expansion into the galaxy. Or, Selnar suggested, her academic mind considering alternatives. Perhaps they're simply not interested in conquest. Kraz made a dismissive sound. Every spacefaring species in Confederate history has expanded aggressively once capable. The Directive Council won't risk assuming humans are different. A sudden alert interrupted their conversation. The observation post sensors had detected unusual activity near Earth. Magnify Grid Sector 7 Alpha. Kraz ordered the nearest technician. The screen showed a ship that didn't match Confederate design. Vexler's ship, the Silent Prophet, now hovering in Earth orbit, apparently by invitation. That's impossible, Kraz muttered. Our defense platforms should have intercepted any unauthorized approach. Unless, Selnar said slowly, the humans wanted that ship to reach them. Kraz's communication device chimed with an incoming priority message from Confederate Command. Security Officer Kraz and Archivist Selnar. The message began, "You are hereby ordered to investigate this breach in quarantine protocols and assess potential contamination. Direct contact with human authorities is authorized." Selnar felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. After 2 centuries of observation from afar, the Confederacy was finally going to face the humans directly. Selnar's diplomatic shuttle approached Earth with caution. Despite the official authorization, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was flying into the maw of a predator. Beside her, Kraz maintained a stoic silence, his security training evident in his constant scanning of instruments. Approaching designated coordinates, the autopilot announced. Earth diplomatic vessel detected on intercept course. The human ship that appeared on their view screen defied Confederate classification standards. It was neither overtly military nor purely diplomatic in design. Its sleek curves suggested speed while its size implied power. Most disconcerting was the complete absence of visible weapons, despite the energy readings that suggested formidable defensive capabilities. Incoming transmission, the computer announced. Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the communication screen, her expression pleasant but evaluative. Confederate representatives, welcome to Earth space. Please follow our escort to the Lunar Diplomatic Facility. Kraz tensed visibly. Lunar Facility. Our instructions specified meeting on your orbital platform. Chen's smile didn't waver. Change of plans. We thought you might appreciate the opportunity to see one of our off-world installations, unless that presents a problem. The subtle challenge in her tone wasn't lost on either of them. This was the first test. Would they follow human protocols or insist on Confederate procedures? No problem at all. Selnar replied before Kraz could object. We're grateful for the opportunity. As they followed the Earth vessel toward the moon, the true scale of human development became apparent. The lunar surface was dotted with domes, interconnected structures, and what appeared to be massive engineering projects. Mining operations, manufacturing centers, and research facilities sprawled across the cratered landscape. Their lunar colony is more developed than some Confederate core worlds. Selnar whispered in astonishment. Kraz nodded grimly. And this is just what they're allowing us to see. The diplomatic facility was carved directly into a lunar mountain, with massive transparent sections providing breathtaking views of both the lunar landscape and Earth hanging in the black sky. The docking procedure was flawless, suggesting the facility regularly received non-human vessels. Dr. Chen greeted them personally as they exited their shuttle, somehow managing to make standard human formal attire look both welcoming and authoritative. 2 assistants flanked her, along with what appeared to be security personnel maintaining a respectful distance. Archivist Selnar, Security Officer Kraz, she said, pronouncing their names with perfect inflection. On behalf of the United Earth Government, welcome. The standard Confederate diplomatic protocols felt suddenly inadequate. Selnar found herself improvising a greeting. We thank you for your hospitality and look forward to productive discussions. Chen led them through corridors that seamlessly blended functionality with aesthetic beauty. Other humans they passed showed curiosity but not fear, a stark contrast to how most species reacted to Confederate representatives. I understand you've been observing us for some time, Chen remarked conversationally as they entered a conference room with a stunning view of Earth. We've been aware of your Neptune station since it was established. Kraz stiffened. That facility is equipped with the most advanced stealth technology in the Confederacy. Yes, Chen agreed with what appeared to be genuine sympathy. It was quite advanced, 2 centuries ago. Would you care for refreshments before we begin? We've synthesized options compatible with your biology. As servitors brought in carefully prepared food and drink, Zelnar noticed something odd about the conference room. The furnishings, the environmental controls, even the lighting. They were all subtly optimized for Confederate comfort, not human preferences. You've studied us thoroughly, she observed. Dr. Chen nodded. Just as you've studied us. Though perhaps with different methods and different questions. She touched a control, and a holographic display appeared above the table. Now shall we discuss the reason for your visit? Or would you prefer I explain why we've allowed your quarantine to stand for 2 centuries, when we could have broken it after the first 50 years? The streets of Tokyo bustled with activity as Selenar and Kraz followed Dr. Chen through the crowded metropolis. Their holographic disguises should have rendered them indistinguishable from humans, yet they received curious glances from passersby. A child pointed directly at them, before being gently redirected by his mother. They know what we are, Kraz muttered, his voice barely audible above the city sounds. Chen nodded without turning. Most adults are polite enough not to stare. Children haven't developed that filter yet. But how? Selnar asked, fascinated despite her discomfort. Our holographic technology is based on sensory manipulation. It shouldn't be detectable. We've developed differently, Chen explained as they approached a sleek building that seemed to be made primarily of a transparent material that wasn't quite glass. After first contact, humanity united around the goal of understanding the universe and our place in it. We took different evolutionary paths than the Confederacy might have predicted. Inside the building, security scanners unlike anything in Confederate technology silently assessed them. Humans in various styles of clothing moved purposefully through the space, many wearing augmented reality interfaces that appeared as subtle glowing patterns around their eyes. This is the Pacific Technological Development Center, Chen explained, one of our more public research facilities. Public? Kraz asked skeptically. Relatively speaking, Chen clarified with a small smile. What you're about to see isn't classified, but it isn't broadcast to the galaxy either. They entered a vast circular chamber where dozens of humans worked at stations surrounding a central holographic projection. The projection showed what appeared to be a star system with unusual energy patterns flowing between the planets. This is our current model of non-local consciousness networking, Chen explained. The practical application allows for instantaneous communication across any distance without reliance on traditional transmission methods. Selnar's scientific training couldn't process what she was seeing. That's impossible. Faster than light communication violates. Conventional physics, yes, Chen completed her thought. We've found conventional physics to be somewhat negotiable when approached creatively. Kraz had moved to examine another workstation, where a human technician manipulated what appeared to be organic technology. What is this? Biosynthetic interface development, Chen said. The merger of biological and technological systems. You're altering your own biology. Kraz's disgust was evident, despite his attempt at diplomatic neutrality. We're evolving it, Chen corrected gently. Just as we've evolved our social structures, our understanding of consciousness, and our relationship with technology. She led them deeper into the facility, past laboratories where humans worked alongside machines that seemed to move with almost organic fluidity. In one room, a team manipulated what appeared to be gravitational fields with casual ease. Your species has barely been spacefaring for 3 centuries, Kraz said, his voice betraying his growing unease. This level of advancement should be impossible. Perhaps, Chen acknowledged, if we had followed conventional development patterns. But first contact changed everything for us. It showed us what was possible and united humanity around a shared purpose. They entered a secure elevator that descended deep beneath the city. As the doors opened, they revealed a cavernous space containing something that made both Confederate representatives freeze in shock. A ship, clearly not of Earth origin, but equally clearly not Confederate design, rested in a research cradle. Teams of humans worked around it, systematically studying its components. As I mentioned earlier, Chen said quietly, "You're not the only visitors we've had. The Myriad Collective found us about 80 years ago. They were less diplomatic than your initial contact team." Zelnar stared at the alien vessel. The Confederacy has no record of this species. The galaxy is larger than the Confederacy acknowledges, Chen replied. There are civilizations beyond your borders that have different visions for cosmic development. Kraz's hand had moved subtly toward his concealed weapon. Are you saying you've allied with enemies of the Confederacy? Chen's expression remained calm but took on a new intensity. We've exchanged knowledge with various civilizations, some known to you, some not. We've made no military alliances. Earth remains neutral in galactic politics. For now. For now. Selnar repeated. Chen's gaze moved between them. That ultimately is why you're here. The quarantine has served its purpose for both sides. The question now is, what comes next? The emergency transmission had gone out before either Selnar or Dr. Chen could stop Kraz. Using a hidden device embedded in his ceremonial security badge, he had managed to bypass Earth's communication protocols and send a distress signal to the nearest Confederate fleet. Now they stood in United Earth Government's Central Command Center, watching as the largest Confederate armada assembled in recent history materialized at the edge of the solar system. 5,000 warships, their weapons primed, arranged in offensive formation. He's doomed your people, Selnar whispered to Chen. The Confederacy will never allow Earth to exist as a potential threat now that they know the extent of your advancement. Chen's expression remained remarkably composed. Your colleague acted predictably. We anticipated this outcome. You anticipated the arrival of 5,000 warships. Selnar couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. The specific number is somewhat higher than our models predicted, Chen admitted, but the response itself was expected. Around them, human operators worked with focused calm, their hands dancing over control interfaces that manipulated holographic displays. There was no panic, no frantic activity, just methodical preparation. Kraz stood under guard nearby, his expression a mixture of triumph and confusion. You should be mobilizing your defenses, he said to Chen, preparing your population for the inevitable. We have our own protocols for these situations, Chen replied evenly. The Confederate fleet's communication came through on all frequencies, overriding Earth's systems with brute force transmission technology. Admiral Vostuller's face filled the main screen, his ceremonial battle armor signifying the seriousness of the encounter. Attention Earth government. Your planet has been deemed an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. You will immediately surrender all advanced technology and submit to Confederate oversight, or face immediate neutralization. The command center fell silent. All eyes turned to Chen, who stepped forward with remarkable poise. Admiral Vostuller, she began, her voice calm and clear. On behalf of Earth, I must decline your terms. Selnar's inner membrane flickered rapidly in distress. She had studied enough military history to know what happened to worlds that defied Confederate ultimatums. Then you leave us no choice, Vostuller declared. May your species find wisdom in its final moments. On the tactical display, the Confederate fleet began its advance toward Earth. Weapon systems powered up across the armada, preparing for a coordinated strike that would overwhelm any defense through sheer overwhelming force. Your final warning, Dr. Chen, Kraz said. Surrender now, while your population can still be spared." Chen exchanged glances with the human operators around her, then nodded almost imperceptibly. One of them activated a control sequence, then announced, "Shield network activated. Harmonic frequency established." Outside the command center's panoramic windows, the sky suddenly shimmered with a faint blue iridescence. On the tactical displays, a wave of energy expanded outward from Earth, propagating through the solar system at impossible speed. The effect on the Confederate fleet was immediate and astonishing. Ship after ship suddenly went dark, their engines and weapons systems shutting down simultaneously. The massive armada, moments ago the most fearsome military force in the galaxy, now drifted helplessly in space. "What have you done?" Kraz demanded, his voice hoarse with shock. "Protected ourselves," Chen replied simply. "The field disrupts energy patterns associated with aggressive intent. Your life support and basic systems remain functional, but weapons and propulsion are temporarily neutralized." Admiral Vostuller's face returned to the screen, now illuminated only by emergency lighting. This is impossible. No technology could affect an entire fleet simultaneously." "Not Confederate technology, no," Chen agreed. "Admiral, your ships and crews are unharmed. We'll be sending vessels to tow you to a safe distance from our solar system, where control of your ships will be restored." Zelnar studied the tactical display in scientific amazement. "You could have destroyed them all." "We could have," Chen acknowledged. "But that's not our way. We haven't spent 2 centuries developing in isolation just to emerge as conquerors." A young human in a simple uniform approached Chen, handing her a communication device. "The United Earth Council has approved the diplomatic package," he informed her. Chen nodded her thanks, then turned back to the stunned Confederate representatives. "For 200 years, your Confederacy has kept us isolated from the galaxy. That isolation ends today. Human ships will be departing for various star systems within the week, carrying representatives, scientists, and diplomats." The implications stunned Selenar. "You're not asking for permission." "No," Chen confirmed. "We're informing you of our intentions as a courtesy." The quarantine served its purpose. It gave humanity time to mature, to develop technologies and philosophies that would ensure our survival. But we've outgrown it. On the main screen, Admiral Vostuller's expression had shifted from outrage to something more complex, perhaps the beginning of understanding. "What are your demands?" Chen's reply came with unexpected gentleness. "We have no demands, Admiral. Only an invitation. The galaxy is large enough for all of us if we choose cooperation over conquest." 1 standard galactic year had passed since the confrontation at Earth. Zelnar adjusted her formal diplomatic attire as she prepared to address the Confederate Council, not as an archivist, but as Earth's official ambassador. The appointment had shocked many, but the humans had insisted on someone who understood both cultures. The council chamber, a vast amphitheater designed to accommodate representatives from hundreds of species, buzzed with nervous energy. The events of the past year had shaken the Confederacy to its core. "Ambassador Selenar," the council speaker announced, "you may present Earth's proposal." She stepped to the central podium, aware of the historical significance of this moment. Above her, holographic displays showed the newly established trade routes throughout Confederate space, where human ships now traveled freely. Other displays showed the transformed warning beacons around the Sol system, now broadcasting their new message. "Earth. Approach with sincerity. Deception etected. Fry-in ship rewarded." Honored representatives of the Galactic Confederacy, Selenar began. "I stand before you today, not just as Earth's voice, but as a bridge between our civilizations. For 2 centuries, the Confederacy maintained a quarantine around Earth, believing isolation was the only way to protect galactic stability from humanity's unpredictable development." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Many counselors still advocated for containment policies, despite the demonstrated futility of military approaches. That quarantine has ended, she continued, not through conflict, but through recognition of a simple truth. Diversity of development paths strengthens us all. The central display shifted to show a montage of human achievements over the past year, previously incurable diseases being treated in Confederate medical facilities, damaged ecosystems rejuvenated through human environmental engineering, faster-than-light communication networks enhancing trade and cultural exchange. Humanity could have emerged from isolation with weapons drawn, Selnar noted. Instead, they came bearing gifts of knowledge and technology, freely shared. Admiral Vostalar, now serving as military liaison to Earth, rose to speak. While I initially advocated for containment, I have witnessed humanity's approach firsthand. They have honored every agreement, shared defensive technologies that have eliminated piracy in 3 sectors, and demonstrated remarkable restraint where they could have claimed dominance. Not all were convinced. Councillor Drek of the Venduri Consortium raised his sensory appendages in objection. They neutralized our entire fleet with technology we cannot replicate. How can we trust such power? Perhaps, Selnar suggested, by acknowledging that power doesn't always corrupt. Humanity had centuries to prepare for galactic emergence. They chose cooperation over conquest. Their history, which I've studied extensively, shows a species that learned from its mistakes rather than repeating them. The display shifted again to show the first joint human-Confederate academy on a neutral world. Young beings from dozens of species studied together, sharing knowledge and cultural perspectives. Among them was Dr. Chen's daughter, working alongside offspring of Confederate leadership. The proposal before you today is simple, Selnar continued. Earth requests full recognition as an independent entity, neither subject to Confederate authority, nor seeking to replace it. They propose a new framework for galactic cooperation, one based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. She touched a control, distributing the detailed proposal to each counselor's personal device. You'll find this isn't a demand but an invitation. Earth brings perspectives the Confederacy has never considered, approaches to technology and consciousness that complement our own strengths. Silence fell over the chamber as counselors reviewed the document. Selnar used the moment to observe how profoundly things had changed. Species that had been enemies for generations now sat together, united in evaluating this new paradigm. The council speaker broke the silence. Ambassador, one question remains unanswered. Why did humans accept isolation for so long when they could have broken the quarantine? Selnar had anticipated this. I asked Dr. Chen the same question during my first visit to Earth. Her answer was profound in its simplicity. The quarantine protected the galaxy from us until we were ready, and protected us from the galaxy until we were strong enough to enter it on our own terms. She paused, allowing the implications to sink in. Humanity's greatest fear was not containment but premature integration, emerging before they had overcome their own destructive tendencies. The isolation gave them time to unite, to develop technologies guided by wisdom rather than competition. The final image appeared on the display. The original No E Inturai warning beacon being deactivated by a joint human Confederate team. The warning served its purpose, Selnar concluded. Now it's time for a new message, not of fear, but of possibility. Earth doesn't wish to conquer the galaxy or remake it in their image. They wish to join it, to contribute their unique perspective to our shared future. As she stepped back from the podium, Selnar knew the vote would be favorable. The Confederacy had existed for millennia by adapting to new realities, and humanity, once feared as the greatest threat to galactic stability, had become its most promising path forward. The warning had been reversed, and with it, the future of the galaxy rewritten.